Welcome to the session 15 of the novel The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. In this session, I'm going to analyze chapter 24 and chapter 25. Now let us see chapter 24. All at once, it was the day of Peter's final party. Marian had spent the afternoon at the hairdresser's. Peter had suggested that she might have something done with her hair. He had also hinted that perhaps she would buy a dress that was, as he put it, not quite so mousy as any she had already worn, and she had duly bought one. She did not think it was really her, but the sales lady did. It had needed an alteration, so she had picked it up when she came from the hairdresser's and was carrying it now in its pink and silver cardboard box as she walked towards the house across the slippery road, balancing her head on her neck as though she was a juggler with a fragile golden bubble. As soon as she walked into the large pink room, everything had been pink and mauve. It was amazing how such ferociously feminine decorations could look at the same time so functional. She had felt as passive as though she was being admitted to a hospital to have an operation. Marin had closed her eyes, leaning back against the operating table, while her scalp was soaped and scraped and rinsed. She thought it would be a good idea if they would give anesthetics to the patients, just put them to sleep while all these necessary physical details were taken care of. When at last all the clamps and rollers and clips and pins were in place, and her head resembled a mutant hedgehog with a covering of rounded airy appendages instead of spikes, she was led away and installed under a dryer and switched on. A cluster of women with shopping bags watched silently, their heavy coats and overshoes draped in the basement light, their eyes shrewd and skeptical. Marian stopped for a minute on the outer fringe of the group. Anyone with a hairstyle like that, they must have been thinking, would be far more trivial to be seriously interested in Greaters. Marian lost her interest and continued her search for the yellow subway sign. After coming home and she opened the front door, she was met by a gabble of female voices. The lady down below was having a tea party. Marian climbed the stairs as noiselessly as she could. For some reason, she had not yet spoken to the landlady down below about giving up the apartment. Maybe Ainsley would want to keep it with another roommate. When she had climbed the second flight of the stairs, she could hear Ainsley talking in the living room. The voice was harder, more insistent, angrier than she had ever heard it before. Ainsley did not usually lose her temper. Oh no, Marian thought. She intended to slip quietly into her room and close the door. But Ainsley must have heard her coming up the stairs. Her head appeared abruptly from the living room, followed by quantities of loose red hair, and then by the rest of her body. She was disheveled and had been crying. Marian, you have got to come in here and talk to Len. I like your hair, she added perfunctorily. Marian trailed after her into the living room, feeling like a child's wheeled wooden tie being pulled along by a string, but she did not know on what grounds, moral or otherwise, she could base a refusal. Len was standing in the middle of the room, looking even more disturbed than Ainsley. Marian sat down on a chair, keeping her coat on a shock absorber. Len almost shouted, after all that, now she wants to marry her. Ainsley was now trying to a slightly more patient and cool-headed approach. Len paced across the floor. That is not quite how I remember it, Ainsley said, and I was in a condition to remember it a lot more clearly than you can. Anyway, she continued with relentless logic. You thought you were seducing me, so it is your responsibility. Len contorted his face, his smile an animate parody of cynical sarcasm. That's not the matter, Ainsley said, her voice rising. You thought you. Marian had been sitting quietly, looking from one to the other, thinking how peculiarly they were acting. The lady down below, right ear, was screw the lady down below, Len roared. This novel idea was so blasphemous and at the same time so ludicrous that both Ainsley and Marian broke into horrified and delighted giggles. Len glared at them. He snatched up his coat from the back of the Chesterfield and strode toward the stairs. Ainsley, seeing the father image escaping, remolded her feathers into an imploring expression and ran after him. Oh, Len, come back and let's talk it over seriously, she pleaded. By the time he was able to start down the next flight of the stairs, Ainsley had caught up to him, was pulling at his sleeve, and all the ladies, as alert to the symptoms of wickedness as a spider to the vibrations of its web, had come fluttering out of the parlor and were gathered at the foot of the stairs, gazing up with a certain gloating alarm. The lady down below, in black silk, and the pulse was being dignified in the background. Dan looked over his shoulder, then down the stairs. He wrenched his sleeve out of Ainsley's clutch. You will never get me, he screamed, charging down the stairs, his coat streaming behind him like a cape, scattering the assembled ladies before him in a blither of afternoon, printed and the velvet flowers gained the front door, which closed behind him with a thunderous crash. The voice of the lady down below was rising above the others, calm and soothing. The young man was obviously inebriated. Well, Ainsley said in a clipped, practical voice when they were in the living room once more. I guess that is that. Marian did not know whether she was referring to Leonardo or the lady down below. Ainsley pushed her hair back over her shoulders and straightened her blouse. I don't think he's going to come around. I guess so. Marian said vaguely. Ainsley went into the bedroom, her firm stride expressing determination, and shut the door. She seemed to have decided on another plan already, but Marian did not even want to think about what that might be. Thinking would be of no use anyway. Chapter 25 Analysis. She decided she was not hungry anyway. Maybe I will have a cup of coffee, Marian said to herself. She did not want to disturb anything for fear of discovering what was going on out of sight. Heaven only knew what further botulisms might be festering underneath. It was too early to start dressing for the party, but she could not think of anything else she could do to fill up the time. She took her dress out of its cardboard box, hung it up, but she thought, I will just deny any connection with the whole mess and let her battle it out with Ainsley. It was remarkable, she thought, how much time you spend with a scouring brush in your hand and your mouth full of foam peering down your own throat. Looking down, she became aware of the water, which was covered with a film of calcaneous hard water particles of dirt and soap, of the body that was sitting in it, somehow no longer quite her own. All at once she was afraid that she was dissolving, coming apart layer by layer like a piece of cardboard in a gutter puddle. She slid her engagement ring back onto her finger, seeing the art circle for a moment as a protective talisman that could help keep her together. But the panic was still with her as it climbed the stairs. She could not face the party. All those people, Peter's friends, were nice enough, but they did not really know her. Fixing their uncomprehending eyes on her, she was afraid of losing her shape, spreading out, not being able to contain herself any longer, beginning to talk a lot, to tell everybody, to cry. Now she was all right. She could begin to dress. She woozed herself into the new girdle she had got to go with dress, noting that she had not really lost much weight. She had been eating a lot of noodles. She had not intended to buy one at all, but the sales lady who was selling the dress and who was thoroughly corseted herself said that she ought to and produced an appropriate model with satin paneling and a bow of ribbon at the front. Of course, you are very thin, dear. You don't really need one, but still, that's a close fitting dress, and you wouldn't want it to be obvious that you haven't got one on, would you? No, of course not, Marian had said yesterday. I will take it. When she had slithered into her red dress, she found she could not reach behind her far enough to do up the zipper. Marian removed the towel from her neck and stood up. It was going to be impossible in this red dress and this face to behave with ordinary matter of fact politeness that the situation was going to require. The lady down below gasped a little when she saw Marian's new ensemble bare arms and bearish dress and well covered face, but her real target was Ainsley, who stood barefooted in a slip with one eye black rinsed and her auburn hair tendrils over her shoulders. Mary noticed that she was clenching a lace handkerchief in one hand. The drinking was bad enough. I know all those bottles were yours. I am sure Miss McAlpin never drank, not more than one shot. Her eyes flickered again over Marian's dress. Her faith was somewhat shaken, but she let the comments pass, though at least you were fairly discreet about all the liquor you were carrying into this house. So she said in an equally accusing voice, tossing back her hair and planting her bare feet further apart on the floor. This was the speech. This was addressed to Ainsley. Now Ainsley retorts to the lady down below. Ainsley retorted, I have always suspected you of being a hypocrite. Now I know you are a bourgeois fraud. You have no real convictions at all. You are just worried about what the neighbors will say. Guess you will have to move, said Marian. And now that the lady down below had finally forced a confrontation she could not imagine why she had ever been slightly afraid of her, Ainsley said calmly and sat down and began to outline her other eye. That must be Peter. That's okay, said Ainsley, drawing a long, gracefully curved artistic eyebrow on her forehead in the place where hers ought to have been. I will come on later. Marin went into the kitchen where she had left her coat. I really should have eaten something, she said to herself. It's a bad idea to drink on an empty stomach. She could hear Peter coming up to the stairs. Thank you for watching the video.